Stand by for broadcast.
You're listening to InsideAIR, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations.
Hello, I'm Squadron Leader Peter Lisney, and in this episode, the RAF goes NATO air policing with the Finnish Air Force.
We learn from you how to do ACE, you maybe learn from us about some of the intricacies of F-35 and 5th Gen Ops.
We are sharing almost 700 miles common border with Russia and we know our neighbor from a long time.
Combined, we can produce a package together that going forward as one is incredibly potent.
Also, in this episode, we'll reheat a few stories just in case you missed them, and we'll be finding out who is under the hat this week.
Can't go anywhere without it. Unreal, mate. On the jet. As soon as we take off, pull up, bed out, DOS bag, that's me.
Find out who is under the hat at the end of this episode. Now, the Finnish Air Force has deployed on its first NATO air policing mission to Romania, operating alongside the RAF's 140 Expeditionary Air Wing. InsideAIR sent Air Specialist 1 Victoria Andrews to find out how the operation has been going.
Thanks to everyone for joining us from NATO air policing in Romania. Quite a unique situation where the RAF 140 EAW are undertaking air policing, enhanced air policing with Romanians, and we're really fortunate to be joined by the Finnish Air Force on their very first NATO air policing, so a big welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks for having us. My name is Rami Kolsan-Steiner Lindström and I'm detached commander for the Finnish Air Force detachment here in Romania.
And hello everyone, I'm Captain Monroe from Karelian Air Command and I'm here as a flight safety officer, also a pilot.
Wing Commander Carl Bird, Commanding Officer 140 EAW.
Brilliant. Sir, you're here, it's been a couple of weeks. How are you finding the mission? It's been a busy couple of weeks with everything, accreditation ceremonies, media days, and of course just that uplift of getting going. How have you found it?
Well, as you mentioned, this has been busy and the whole our preparations before we came here was a quite steep learning curve in some manners. And we built up our camp here before the main group came in. And right now, actually, after 2 weeks, we are on track finally, and we are able to do the mission. Why we are here? We are here in Romania to contribute NATO air assets to NATO air policing missions and to help deter aggression.
Of course, air policing wouldn't be unfamiliar to you. You'd undertake that at a national level at home. Can you talk to us a bit about that and then what's been different or the challenge in coming here to Romania and that first mission?
We are sharing almost 700 miles common border with Russia and we know our neighbor from a long time. But actually in Finland we haven't done NATO air policing or air policing itself, that we are doing that under national legislation and we are calling that territorial surveillance and integrity missions, and actually it's under national legislation, and the difference here is that once we are doing air policing it's a peacetime mission and it's under NATO ROE, and in Finland you can compare that we are doing air defense mission all the time, so we are prepared more or less everything, and that's the difference between legislation. But other way, I feel that the QRA is more or less same.
So I think there's a different mindset as well. So the UK is an island nation. Obviously, we face a threat, but it's not very visible. It's not very public. We've obviously done QRA, both against terrestrial airlines, but also against anything coming around from the north from Russia. But Steiner's already mentioned, Finland shares a 700-mile border, and we're here in Romania, and Romania shares a border with Ukraine. You can sit on the Black Sea coast, and 60 kilometres away, it's not hard to imagine Snake Island, and maybe 100 kilometres away, there is almost a full-blown war in Europe. And the Romanian sort of public perception of that is quite clear. Romania's been in NATO for 20 years. And they do see the fact that they've got a border with Ukraine and they could be next. So definitely I think both Finland and Romania have a different mindset to maybe the public of the UK in sort of how existential that threat is, which again is just a difference that I think you've got that in your mindset and that automatically brings you more mission focused when you're here.
Yeah, that might be that actually our operations in Finland, let's say it has been more active in the Gulf of Finland than down here from NATO perspective. But yeah, it might be that has been our focus for a long time.
Yeah, we're used to having that adversary close, so operationally it makes no difference coming in here. And for example, emission control, you don't have to teach us that because we know it.
Could you, as a nation who've been here, done it 5 times, can you talk to me about some of those support elements and the people we have on our team who've been able to lend a particular kind of insight and hand to the Finnish as they got up and running for the first time?
Yeah, so I think it's easy to practice in your home country or exercise somewhere closer to home, but this is one of the furthest deployments that I think you've done and for the longest period of time. And then there's the added complexity of we're here supporting our Romanian allies in defence of NATO airspace, but we're sharing the block of air policing together. All of that is much easier to focus on once you're here together in country. We first met the Finnish in December on their first recce, and then they came out again in March when we just set up. But actually to get the team out here 2 weeks ago and be able to sit down face to face and work out things like choreographing moving armed aircraft around that you can whiteboard, but until you stand on the space that you've got available and work out, right, this room needs these computers and this ops room needs this, and oh, that's your ops room, by the way, Finland. Just actually being able to do that together is much easier. But we've been able to work together in areas such as security and our guarding. We're doing that together. Our logistics have worked together. It might be that, maybe borrowed a forklift truck because the Romanians didn't have the suitable one and we did. We knew from the start that we'd be providing the communication systems into NATO for the Finnish, which enables them to get key pieces of information that they need to do the mission. But generally, you've come as a pretty self-sustained deployment, and it's only been small areas that we've been able to sort of lean in and help. I think our intelligence team helped with some of the bits that we've seen before and where they're getting things from NATO, but it's that sort of, coin a phrase, the NATO-isms that we're particularly helping with. All of it you're able to do yourselves, but it's just that the NATO angle and how that comes in.
Yeah, there is a saying that amateurs speak tactics and professionals speak logistics, but it feels more like that we should speak CIS, and that's the connectivity. All in all, that's a big part, and so we are able to get all the information required and do the reporting and like pull and push. That was the major thing what Royal Air Force helped us out.
And how have you found that? I suppose collectively, I'll come to each of you, working together, the relationship seems to be really strong, really positive.
So I think from our perspective, it's an added pressure because it is Finland's first time. There is a lot of eyes on us collectively here. NATO took a great interest of your sort of arrival and your accreditation. The Romanians are clearly very happy that we're here together. So I think it just adds that extra pressure, but it's been an absolute privilege. I think we've, all NATO countries work well together, but to be here for the first time, I think that's an added both pressure but also privilege.
Yeah, from my point of view, that of course it was helpful that the base was pretty good from the Romanian side and from the US support once they are able to offer all the defects and all that stuff. But to be here and work with UK and Royal Air Force, that was especially because you guys, especially you have a huge experience around the globe, and now we are here to learning from the best, I would say. And the connectivity was the one big thing that without help of UK's connectivity, that we would be in trouble in some manners, and that was a huge help. And for example, UK's compound in that QRA area, that we came in a already served table, so that was a huge help for us. And of course, to work with professionals in all level, that it always a pleasure.
I'd like to pick up on that actually. I mean, it's very easy to sit here and you said, you know, we've got an advantage. We're quite lucky. This is our 5th time here in MK, so that brings its benefits that we've seen it before. But this is definitely a two-way street. You know, we've got a lot that we can learn from the Finnish Air Force. You have been doing agile combat employment, something that Royal Air Force is trying to reintroduce. You never stopped doing it, whereas we used to do it, and then we got bedded into 20 years of counterinsurgency and took our eye off the ball. So I think we've got a lot to learn. We've definitely got a bit of equipment envy. We've seen some of the things you've bought, mobile ops rooms, mobile security ops rooms and things, and you just have that mentality of being able to forward deploy and hit the ground running. So the Royal Air Force will definitely be taking lessons back from yourselves as well of how to do that. So yeah, it's definitely a two-way street here.
So I'm really glad you brought that up, because again, I think that's clear that there's a certain or a very clear professionalism with how you've come into the mission, and I think it's been noted that through that there's definitely things that you can bring to NATO. Would you like to speak to some of those things that you think that the Finnish do particularly well?
Well, yeah, it was actually funny to hear that you think that we are like prepared to deploy, but yeah, basically that's true. But we are prepared to deploy. All those our containers are made for homeland defense in Finland. So that's what we do. We are spreading everything around Finland, and we are operating in highway strips and that stuff. But now we see that why don't they work out of Finland too? So why not? No, well, that's at least one point to raise up, that where we are specialized somehow. And for example, in last autumn we had a highway strip. It wasn't real exercise, but it was part of the bigger exercise, and the UK Typhoons participated there, and they landed in a highway strip, I think first time for a long time, as Carl mentioned. But our conscripts down there in the middle of forest, they refueled your Typhoons out there, and I think that is something which is with mutual support and cooperation.
And Captain Monroe, in a sort of a tactical sense, has there been anything that you found different in coming here operationally, or again have our team been able to support you?
Yeah, your team has been great. You've been part of NATO since the beginning for 75 years now, so us being part of the alliance for 1 year, of course you have some knowledge that we still don't have, and that's a point of these mutual deployments, to share that knowledge and get to know each other. It's the long-term relationship between each other, like bilateral relationship, that builds up the trust.
I think it's worth highlighting that, you know, this relationship between Finland and the UK is just beginning. As we share the same aircraft in a few years' time, when we're both F-35 nations, you know, there's going to be something like 600 F-35s in Europe, and less than 10% will be American. So I think the ability to be able to interoperate is only going to increase, because once you share the same platform, the desire is we'll be able to land our F-35s in Finland, and you turn them, arm them, service them, and we go off, and vice versa. So that ability to then project, we learn from you how to do ACE, you maybe learn from us about some of the intricacies of F-35 and 5th Gen Ops. I think there's definitely much a bright future here for the two nations working together.
Since you all know we are getting 35s in the start of 25, 26, so we'll be starting training in the US, so that'll bring more capabilities for us to bring to NATO theatre.
Can I just bring in maybe just to talk about your people that you have here in Romania? Who is making up the air wing that you have here on the base?
Our personnel down here, we have about 90 persons in here and 7 F-18s, and we are doing this by rotations. This is something new for us, because we used to do as Homeland Defense, and people are not get used to be aboard more than a couple weeks maybe, and that's why we thought that we will do this by rotations, quite short one if I'm asking from Brits, for example, and that is because we are able to share that knowledge as many personnel as possible inside Finnish Air Force, and on the other hand that it's like a soft landing for this deployment thing.
And is everyone enjoying it so far?
It was a rough start when it's quite fast start, and we had to do a lot of things in a pretty short period, but right now, as I mentioned, we are on track, and at least my gut feeling is that people are pretty happy. But Monroy, maybe you can...
Yeah, I see it as people are enjoying it. Of course, the first week was around 13-hour days for each of us going through for the readiness verification. So that was a good start, but then it's eased up a bit. So we've had some time to go for some football game and grab a couple of pints of Guinness at the MWR. So it's been all right.
Is the Guinness any good?
Not as good as in the UK.
Very good. No, I think the integration's been really good, sir. You probably could speak to that. The various exercises we were away during the detachment here, and of course then there's been exercises that we've been taking part of from here, from MCAB, and then various bits like we had kind invite to use your sauna facilities. Of course, there's the support on the media day, and I believe there was even an international volleyball competition.
Yeah, so I mean our deployment's very different to the Finnish. We've got 6 aircraft, but we've got over 200 people. But then we've come here. We're here for almost all of us are here for 5 months, but we've come here with a different mentality of we're also doing dynamic forward deployments from MK. So we took 53 people and 3 aircraft forward to Finland, where we took part in exercise swift response. And then we did the same with again 52 people, I think it was, and 3 aircraft to Poland for exercise Astral Night. So our footprint is deliberately slightly larger to allow us in our cold weeks to do more exercises, more activity. But then that's also allowed us to do more flying training once the Finnish have got here, because we're doing back-to-back hot weeks, but in the time there where we've got spare capacity and people and aircraft to fly extra, which has allowed us to do the training and integration. But as you say, it's not just the flying. I know there's been events and socials together. We've been out for dinners, and as I say, there was a pilot sauna last week, and that's nice to be able to share the different things in different ways.
It's all part of the experience, isn't it, I think? While we work hard in those 13-hour days, but they're made that bit easier when the morale is high and when you can mix, and it's great to see those kind of friendships, professional and kind of personal, develop over what's been a short space of time, but I think an intense one by the nature of what we do and how we do it. So there must be a great sense of pride seeing your people come here first time and, as you say, hit the ground running and excel at what they're doing in a short space of time. So has that been nice to see for yourself?
No, definitely. It's been an honor to be as a commander of this kind of a group, but it's all this solid team. That's the main important thing for me, that if the guys and girls, they enjoy to be here and we are able to fulfill our task after that the main important thing that they feel good, and after that we fulfill our mission, of course, and then we'd like to be remembered the team who do their work as a professional manner, and we are smiling even we are doing our work, and that if that's be remembered, that I'm pretty happy.
We heard how Lieutenant Colonel Lindstrom said professionals speak logistics, identifying their importance and how they underpin all aspects and the success of deployed operations, from domestic and technical accommodation to the infrastructure that allows our engineers to work efficiently. Having a functioning working setup is fundamental. To understand some of the key considerations, I sat down with 140 EAW Logs Officer Flight Lieutenant Nixon and her Finnish counterpart.
So I'm Captain Matias Kuure, and I'm the logistic flight commander here. And I've been involved in this whole operation from the get-go, and I've been planning and doing the preparation, and now here for the first rotation. And basically I'm responsible for the logistic and the personnel around the aircraft maintenance. In Finland we include, for example, aircraft armaments and all the base support elements as well in the aircraft maintenance. So basically I've been doing the whole thing here.
A lot of exercising, but was it different? Was it a land move, or what were some of the things you had to think about travelling that distance?
Yeah, so the distance is pretty long from Finland to Romania, and we have a quite limited capability to airlift. So we had to do the material transport by road. So there was quite a lot of planning on deciding what gear and equipment we need here to perform and meet the requirements that we have here.
And then in terms of getting set up, Flight Lieutenant Nixon, were you offering support there, and what were some of the sort of tips and tricks you were able to offer?
Yeah, so we had quite a few meetings when you first got here, didn't you? And a few other land logistics people that were here, Belay that was here. And we basically just shared LIs from the start, didn't we? And because this is actually the first time that we've built our own compound in terms of contracted cabins that have been provided like for us from a NATO contract on a camp in Romania, then obviously you guys would come in 2 months down the line and wanting to recreate what we'd recreated at the start. So we'd just basically been the trial monkeys for them to be able to then come in and hopefully do everything without any sort of major issues. We tried to pass on what we learnt from our activation and try and tell them the best places to unload kit and how to go about things best with the Americans and the Romanians that are here, because that can sometimes be learning the best way to get the support you need.
I imagine that actually must be key in those key contacts from the host nation or the US parties who are here. So if you can get those off the bat without having to run around and spend time figuring it out, it must have made that pretty quick.
I mean, we had a really tight time schedule, and luckily we had Flight Lieutenant Nixon's team to support us, because we had minor challenges with moving our sea containers inside the base, and that's where Nixon's team really showed us some help, and also learning the right contacts here and getting us through with some processes here in the air base. It really speeded up our process of making ourselves home here.
There's a lot more things than once you're like living and working here, there's a lot more things that go on than what you realise, isn't there? And like instantly when we all sat down in my office and tried to think about what we could do for you, it started reeling off as like escorting access, base access, fuel point access lists, all of these things that you're like, well, how do we get these contracts set up for them? And getting halfway with sort of taking you to meet people and things like that.
Yeah, that probably took us like a week of work. Everything was like coming instantly from the Royal Air Force. We got into the game really fast.
And now a couple of weeks on that you've had a chance to kind of use all those contacts, get familiar with all the systems and facilities that are here at MCAB. At a point where you're finishing your first rotation, do you feel like you're in a position where are you happy with, I suppose, the point in which the detachment is at now? It's been quite a success.
It has been really good. We are used to be like self-dependent, and once we get our wheels rolling, everything becomes a little bit simpler, and we're getting to the routines here. And now that the first rotation is at the end, it feels like we are now in, and we are part of the community here and part of the airbase.
In terms of that building your village, some of the facilities you've brought, I think, has really impressed the RAF in terms of the cabins that come already set up. So what are some of the sort of maybe bespoke or different facilities that you have there that would be quite common in the Finnish Air Force, whereby you deploy with these assets?
During our site survey 2, the second site survey, we made a plan of the layout of the camp, and there are some elements that we always bring with us into all exercises for like the security containers and infosec containers and the flight ops and operations center. That's something that we have always. And those gates and the sauna, of course. We just need to have it.
You're dead right. And another one I thought was really great in terms of, I'm not sure whether it came from the site recce or whether it's just a thing that you do when you move about, but the bank of bicycles that you've brought. It's really clever and such a great way to get around in this heat. It's just a quick and easy way of getting around. And I see everyone on the camp seem to get great use out of them.
Yeah. So we brought 28 of bicycles from Finland, and I mean, they are just a convenient way of moving around the base, and it's really something that we are used to in our home base. We do it all the time.
They are amazing, and it obviously it's something that happens everywhere really, and unfortunately we haven't managed to sort it for this deployment, because I think usually we are known as like, oh, the Brits on their bikes, and that is something that we do quite a lot as well. But it is really nice to see. You definitely dug them out of somewhere, didn't you? Because they're not new bikes at all, are they?
They are not
old
new.
reliables.
Yeah, they are old reliables, and they just last. They last the time.
You mentioned you're also heavily involved with the engineering side and the aircraft. How, in terms of setting up and the infrastructure, are you pleased with how that's gone? It's allowed you to seamlessly get your accreditation and then begin the mission?
Setting up our actions or activities here in MKAB, it was something different that we are used to when going, for example, to Sweden or Norway, where the infrastructure around the airbase supports you really well. So here in MKAB, we saw that we need to bring our own deployable maintenance hangar, and that really helped us setting our aircraft maintenance setup here. So
I think the deployable kit-wise is something we definitely want to be better at. In terms of like the ops room that this is more what we saw when we went to Finland on Astral Night, and all of like the cabins that you had on the flight line for the Brits to use are all very much like can close down like some sort of caravan awning and just deploy off like ISO on the back of a truck. And I just don't think we invest it well enough in stuff like that. We turn up and just deal with it when we get there, or expect help when we get there. And like, you're quite a lot better at being self-sufficient. In terms of the armoury as well, we had a bit of a faff with our armoury when we first got here, and had to just provide solutions. Whereas when I mentioned that to yourselves and Spanish, you were both like, oh, well, we deploy with an armoury. It's not a problem for us. So it's definitely things we can learn as well.
Would you say, from your perspective, for your first NATO mission, is it nice to be part of that? Is there a sense of pride in being part of the first deployed group, and especially being that first rotation, physically being here and seeing it get spun up and go so well?
I mean, it's been a great honor for me to be a part of the planning team and the preparation team and the advanced party, and of course the first rotation here. And I have learned a lot during this whole period of time, and it has given me a lot of tools for the future deployments. And I have made some nice new connections here, and met a lot of people that I hope I see in the future operations as well.
Those first few weeks are an extremely busy time in establishing the infrastructure while also focusing on securing mission readiness accreditation from NATO. Each detachment then has a ceremony where a mission ready certificate is presented. Due to it being their first detachment, naturally there was an added level of interest in the Finnish accreditation. We can hear some of the speeches made on the day now, which speak to the significance of the occasion.
I have to express my warmest gratitude and appreciation to both countries, Romania and Finland, for their generous contribution and ironclad commitment to making the skies of Europe safer and more secure than ever before. The Euro-Atlantic area is not at peace, as authoritarian actors challenge our interests, values, and democratic way of life. NATO is determined to safeguard the freedom and security of allies against any and every threat, no matter what they stem from, in a 360-degree approach, by ensuring a substantial and persistent presence on land, at sea, and in the air.
There are a lot of things that support our commitment and understanding on NATO peacetime operations, but we have also a lot to learn. One main thing is to understand that we are now a part of something bigger and we don't have to resolve all the problems ourselves. Is it in the air or on the ground? We are now a part of an alliance, and our allies will have the right capabilities or the know-how for challenges arising. I will also take the opportunity to express my deep gratitude to the personnel of the Finnish detachment, who has made the almost impossible a reality and a first for Finland, to be part of this historic event. A big thank you to our team. Together, we are stronger.
It is the first mission Finnish armed forces are performing as a NATO member, and we are very happy it is Romania they choose for this important event. In addition to the political significance of this mission, I would say this is a golden opportunity for British, Romanian, and Finnish pilots to fly together, train together, and create those invisible bonds that only spring among military people acting together.
Support for NATO membership in Finland remains the highest in the alliance. With Russia's illegal war of aggression against Ukraine, Finnish support for joining NATO skyrocketed to figures above 80%. Finland fully embraces the idea of a collective defense. We are ready to protect the alliance against all threats from all directions.
Our strength stems from our unity and our cohesion. That's the message of today's ceremony. It is now my privilege to present the Mission Ready Certificate to the Finnish Air Force Fighter Squadron 31. Good luck, be vigilant, fly safe. Thank you.
In the final part of the podcast, Captain Munro joins us again alongside 9 Squadron Typhoon pilot Flight Lieutenant Clark. We chat over next-gen aircraft and NATO training. But first, Flight Lieutenant Clark explains the basic fighter manoeuvre scenarios, or BFM, that they've been undertaking together here with the Finnish Air Force from MCAB.
Target 1469, shoot to threat to east lane.
Once targeted 147, 48,000 to ship.
Tower number Zulu Kilo 358 for Venom 41 and Zulu Kilo 350 for Venom 42.
Basically, it's just a jet from either team, so one Typhoon, one F-18. We go out sort of as a pair, then we get to the airspace, and then we go through a bunch of setups for training. We're within visual range manoeuvring. So a lot of people call it dogfighting, but to us we call it BFM. And then we'll basically set ourselves up to try and beat each other in certain scenarios. It's quite dynamic. It's probably the most dynamic fighting we do, or dynamic training we do as a fighter pilot. So it's good fun. It's hard work, but it's good fun.
And do the scenarios change each day?
It's more like an the setups are made up so that they are a bit like puzzles for the counterparts to solve. So, for example, one could be the attacker and one's defender, and then they'll start from some different angles or so on from different situations or positions, and then yeah, you just roll with it, and it ends up in different scenarios or different situations. So the defender might be the attacker in the end, so the roles might change. But if they both do a good job, then it might just end up in the same way as it started.
And is it there must be some sort of, I suppose everyone's got a preference and we're all very passionate about the aircraft we fly. So I presume both of you would say that your own aircraft is the better aircraft, the better jet.
Yeah, they've got their own better sides.
Yeah,
and,
each one has its own strength and its own weakness.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
So if I wouldn't put Typhoon on the same missions as F-18. F-18 can do something. It's a strike fighter. It's designed a bit different way than Typhoon. Typhoon's a raid fighter, which is good for something, and Hornet is more of a radius or alpha fighter.
Yeah, well, two different types of aircraft, both with relatively similar mission sets, but both can do have better strengths at other mission sets than the other. So, Typhoon as like an escort aircraft is very good because its beyond visual range capabilities are pretty impressive compared to dare I say an F-18. But an F-18 has much better surface attack capability probably than a Typhoon. So combined, we can produce a package together that going forward as one is incredibly potent. So that's ultimately what we're doing as part of NATO, training with each other, figuring out where each aircraft and each air force works better is all part of why we're here really.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's how we would do it.
Yeah, and that's why these opportunities, both the exercising piece, but now quite uniquely to be doing air policing side by side, is going to give both detachments a great footing to work together, build relationships and build that kind of understanding, I presume.
Yeah, definitely. And I think nail on the head is building relationships. Now that Finland are part of NATO, we've now got contact with each other. If we can try and tee up future exercises, and we've always got by knowing people and meeting and sharing experiences, we can actually move forward and develop more effective training, which has been something that we're going to definitely try and continue to do. So yeah, I'm sure Finland will be exactly the same.
Has there been any learnings? I know it's only been a week, 10 days or so, but from the time you've spent together and getting to know each other in a casual setting, which has been good to see, and then in a professional setting in the air, that you could say, wow, that's really, I wonder, could we do better in that area? Or
I think from UK perspective, the fact that Finland are recent members of NATO, how quickly they've just jumped in and just got up to speed of everything has been really impressive. You wouldn't have thought that they've only been in for a year. How time flies, but the guys are up to speed of it almost instantaneously. So it's been impressive to see that happen from a UK perspective.
Yeah, and I, as I said before, also I highly respect the specific professionalism that you all have. You do your stuff in a highly professional manner, and we respect that. And also, of course, we like to do it so similar way also. But we've got something to learn from you in those aspects also. For example, with how you handle the QRA stuff for NATO and all those. It was good to see you guys do it before we did it here.
And Captain Munro, you're moving in the next couple of years. You'll move to the F-35 as your primary platform. Can you tell me about sort of that transition?
Yeah, so we're getting the same amount of F-35s as we do have the F-18s now, so 64 altogether. It's still a fighter jet. F-18 is still fully capable of doing the stuff that it does now and that is needed. But then you get the better equipment and all those with the F-35. And of course we're eager to get into it and get to know everything about it. But now we're still operating with F-18. It still does fine. But in 2 years, some of our guys are gonna go to US for the initial training, and the training will continue in Finland after that. So I would say I think it's around 2030-ish that all of the F-18s should be retired and then replaced by 35s.
That's an exciting new generation for the Air Force as you sort of move towards this newer capability, and that'll be an interesting sort of dynamic where there's an awful lot of nations in Europe flying the F-35 and ourselves, so that will change the dynamics and able to maybe share capabilities, exercising or forward deploying.
It's going to be a good pool of 35s in Europe in the 2030s, and I'm sure we're gonna benefit from that a lot.
You say shaping the tactics and stuff. Typhoon against an F-35 is will start to become relatively legacy, especially in a decade down the time. We've only got another 20 years left of Typhoon on the current program, so I'm sure at some point we'll start to see and hear a bit more about its replacement Tempest and how that's then going to fit into the game, and then then we're going to be looking at how F-35 and Tempest fit in the game together, and Typhoon will slowly no longer exist. But currently Typhoon and F-35 are figuring out and are working very hard together to ultimately utilise the best of both of the aircraft to figure out how to crack several nuts in terms of tactics.
As I'm not sure if we discussed it before, but for 4th gen and 5th gen fighters, fighter integration, it still has, like the 4th gen fighter still has the role, like an important role in there. It's still gonna have that for like decades to come.
So it's an exciting place to be in 2024, looking ahead to new capabilities, new jets, and then friendships and relationships that are getting stronger and better across NATO.
Yeah, definitely. And I think my experience more recently, especially as we're doing a bit more sort of air policing and some of the enhanced air policing stuff, it's like we are doing more. Like NATO is doing more from an air power front, and it's great that we're having a lot more interaction and interoperability with other nations, and so I can think of probably at least 5 or 6 air forces I've worked with in the last year, and that's fantastic stuff. And like got contacts, got had good training, and going forward, like everyone's developing. It's not like we're doing this exercise and kind of scratching our heads, going, "Christ, what went wrong there?" It's like, oh, this is brilliant. Like the Finns are up to speed with all of our tactics as well, so we can just work together seamlessly to move forwards, which is great. So we can all develop rather than have to just rely on one air force or one nation to sort of carry the front. We can offload that from the bigger forces to guys who want to, that we know are up to speed already, which is absolutely great.
It's good to see it works, and that it's not just a whole load of press releases or videos or whatever, but actually seems like a busy landscape.
Yeah, no, it is. It is, and like the exercises we've been doing, across Europe, they're the biggest that have happened ever. The biggest NATO exercises have happened in the last couple of years, and it's great that we're getting so many nations contributing to it, and it's all really good, valuable training. It's not very often you get to go on these large scale LFEs we call them, and participate in them, and it's like the fact that we've had so many recently across the entirety of Europe is great stuff. Yeah, I'm sure Finland will be jumping in with both feet to get involved as much as they can.
Yeah, that's right. And now when we have started doing air shielding, and you doing air shielding, air policing in Baltics, and of course here, and so when you're down in Baltics, it's that much closer to Finland that it's easy for us to just jump into our jets and maybe go for a sortie with you guys at the same time as you're doing your air policing stuff. So it kind of changed the game when we joined NATO, and now we're part of the same pool. Of course, we did it before a bit, but then it still opens some doors.
Phantom 3, kill 2 ships, 16259, rolling.
Hi, I'm AS1 Emma Kerwin, and this is Reheat, where we take a look back at some of the stories you might have missed. Six RAF Typhoons and a Voyager started flying sorties as part of exercise Pitch Black in Australia. This year will be the largest in its 43-year history, with 20 nations, over 140 aircraft and up to 4,500 personnel deployed on the exercise. It's held every 2 years and focuses on large-scale air missions. Among them are 6 Typhoons from 11 Fighter Squadron from RAF Coningsby, and the Voyager aircraft from RAF Bryce Norton's Air Mobility Force. Wing Commander Robertson, Detachment Commander, says the exercise provides an excellent opportunity for the RAF to work with a variety of other nations, including some for the first time. 9 Bomber Squadron from RAF Lossiemouth has been officially certified as a multi-role combat-ready squadron while deployed on NATO operations in the Black Sea region. The Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton, made the declaration this month in Romania, where the squadron is currently stationed. 9 Squadron reformed at Lossiemouth in 2019 as a Typhoon aggressor and QRA Squadron, providing specialist adversary training to frontline units. More than 150 RAF personnel have taken part in the ceremony that was part of the state opening of Parliament on the 17th of July. The armed forces lined the streets, performing music and fanfares and escorting the King's Carriage procession from Buckingham Palace to the House of Lords. And service personnel have carried out stewarding duties at Wimbledon over the past few weeks. The armed forces have been supporting the event for more than 70 years. You're up to date on Reheat.
I'm AS1 Ben Russell, and this is Under the Hat, where we get to know an aviator in less than a minute. Name you're known by.
I'm AS1V, known as Barry or Baz.
What's your profession?
I'm a logistics mover in the RAF, based at RAF Bryce Norton.
What's the best thing about your job?
I've got to say the travel. Travel's good, go to lots of different countries, good countries, some dodgy countries, so it's nice.
Hardest part of your job?
Probably travelling. As I said, you do go away, but you go away a lot.
Best location you've served?
Needs to be Australia. We went to Australia on a task and it was unbelievable. What a country. So nice, really, really nice.
What bit of luxury kit do you never deploy without?
Probably my blow-up bed for the jet, or a sleeping bag. Can't go anywhere without it. Unreal, mate. On the jet. As soon as we take off, blow-up bed out, DOS bag, that's me.
And what's your proudest moment in the RAF?
I'd probably say representing the RAF Aces. It's the Royal Air Force Ice Hockey team, the representative team, and also representing UCAF.
Thank you, AS1 for keeping us moving with another episode of Under the Hat.
That's all for this episode of Inside Air. Please give us a review and subscribe on your favourite podcast app, and join us again soon.
You've been listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations. If you're serving in the RAF and have a story for us, please speak to your unit media and communications officer. Inside Air is written and produced for the Royal Air Force by RAF Media Reserves.